Good evening. So today's story theme, sleep paralysis, you might say, is a bit personal. The reason is, I used to have it myself. The shadows, the voices, even the physical encounters. But after a conscious decision, I grew out of it. I will talk more about that at the end of the video. Maybe it will help some of you who deals with this. Because sleep paralysis is not much fun. Anyway, enough about me. Let's get to the stories. Have you heard of sleep paralysis before? If not, consider yourself lucky. The deepest part of sleep is called REM. That's the part where we dream. During REM sleep, the nerves between the brain and the muscles are basically turned off so that we don't act out our dreams in bed. When someone is coming out of REM sleep or falling into it and is factually awake, sleep paralysis might happen. The person affected is completely unable to move any muscles, and they can experience hallucinations. Seeing people in corners, hearing voices or screams, the whole 9 yards. Sleep paralysis usually only lasts a couple of minutes. Now, the medical explanation sounds uncomfortable, but not too bad. But the feeling of being wide awake, eyes open, seeing and hearing everything, and being unable to do anything against whatever is happening to you is scary as hell. Demons standing in the corner of your room. Sounds of people breaking into your home. Anything your subconscious might spit out in a burst of creativity. I have suffered from sleep paralysis since I was 14. It messed with my sleep cycle and caused sleep deprivation, which in turn created even more frequent and worse sleep paralysis. Whatever caused you to flinch during that one horror flick, or kept you awake after a really intense nightmare. I had probably experienced it by the age of 22, all while knowing I was awake and incapable of moving, or screaming or doing anything against it. So when I slowly woke up in the middle of the night and saw someone standing in the corner of my room, I didn't think much of it. Don't get me wrong, I was scared shitless. It does not get better, no matter how many years passed. I took deep breaths, as my therapist told me, and tried to remember that it would be over soon. For a while, nothing happened. I felt as if it had been 10, maybe 20 minutes already, but my episodes never lasted longer than 3. Eventually, the figure began to move. It was clad in black, its eyes catching the light of the street lamps outside through my window. It had a hood on, and I couldn't make out its face. It came towards me, and I prepared myself to be strong. Just get through this, just one more time. I told myself this every night. My bed dipped as the figure knelt over me. Its hands closed around my throat and cut off my air supply. No matter how many times I told myself that it was just a hallucination, the biological flight or fight response kicked in anyway. My heart rate picked up, my palms got sweaty, I was feeling a little dizzy. Its hands tightened. "I know you're awake," it whispered. Its breath smelled like alcohol and rotten teeth. By now, I was sure I was about to pass out. And then I realized that I could move. Really? This again? I think to myself as I lay flat on my back, staring up at my bedroom ceiling. I am unfortunately familiar with the terrifying phenomena known as sleep paralysis. The one that which you are practically dreaming while still awake. It has happened a few times before, but it is never a pleasant experience. Alright, I'll just close my eyes. I'll close my eyes and eventually this will pass. I close my eyes and I take a deep breath to try to relax myself. My heartbeat is becoming less and less rapid with each breath. I am then aware of the back of my eyelids, turning a familiar red-orange color. I open them and see that the hallway light has been turned on. I hear footsteps and my older brother's low voice coming up from the hallway. "Hey Katie, I heard a weird noise and wanted to see if you were His voice is cut short as he comes up to the doorway of my bedroom. I can wiggle my fingers and realize that this isn't any normal episode of sleep paralysis. I start to get up. Don't move. My brother is looking at the space above my head, wide-eyed with fear. I freeze up. Ever suffered from sleep paralysis before? If not, you don't know how bad it can get. Trust me, I've been dealing with it for years now. The fear never seems to lessen or disappear. It controls you. The helplessness, the hallucinations and the fear that follows takes control as your eyes dart across the room. You dread even blinking, as you fear losing the only part of the body you are still in control of. Your eyes following the shadow that takes the shape of an intruder around the room. Your mind thinking up monsters where there are none as you lie, unable to move even a finger. Paralyzed, you're only able to watch as the shadow moves towards you. You can't even scream. When your body is unable to activate its fight or flight response, the mind panics. It goes into overdrive mode and conjures up your worst nightmares. It induces true terror. It's even worse when it just keeps happening. Night after night, you can only watch as the shadow moves closer. Maybe it feels like your bed is shaking. Maybe you feel your duvet sliding off of your body. Or maybe you hear a disembodied laughter from somewhere in your darkened bedroom. All whilst you lie still and unprotected, like a child, unable to protect itself from the boogeyman. All you can do is watch as the humanoid shadow moves closer to you. All you can do is listen to the laughter and feel the touch of fingers on your arm, waiting for it to end as you try to tell yourself you know the science behind it all. But science doesn't save you. Knowledge doesn't stop the paralysis. Did you know? Certain drugs you ingest mimic the effects of sleep paralysis, with the added bonus of increased paranoia. They can leave you unable to move, yet have you feel and hear everything that happens around you. That way, the person administering the drug can take their time, maybe even over a few nights or weeks, to prolong the fear. You see, I'm not strong or big. I don't have a look that strikes fear in people. I just look like your average Jane. Nothing makes me stand out. Nothing about me makes people afraid. I guess that's what makes me such a trustworthy babysitter. What makes single mothers and widowed fathers invite me into their houses to watch their kids and have free access to their kitchen. Don't worry. I don't hurt or scare the kids. The kids love me, usually come willingly after. I need you to be afraid though. The fear and chance of your kids walking in on me, engaging in my hobby, is part of what makes it all so fun. Of course, I need you to keep still too. If you're unable to move, I can take my time and enjoy myself. If you can't scream and wake up the kids, then I can really savor the kill. It's the morning after. My 7th night of sleep paralysis has ended. I chalked it up to the new medicine that I was prescribed, which did a good job at sedating me ever since I hurt my back at work. The pain relief and relaxation were godsend, but these episodes of sleep paralysis that started happening the night I took my first pill are very disconcerting to say the least. It was always the same. I would wake up around 1 a.m. in the morning, and there's a man dressed in an all-black suit, sitting on the side of my bed, just smiling at me. It was not a friendly, nice-to-see-you smile, but a very sinister one that chills my motionless spine. I have never experienced something so surreal and terrifying before in my life. And it happened every single night. I confronted my doctor about it, and he was clueless as to why I experienced these episodes every night. So I was prescribed something a little less strong yesterday morning. Last night started off normal. I did my nightly routine and hesitantly took my new medicine. I was definitely eager to ease the constant stabbing pain in my lower back, but was wary as to what the possible side effects could be. I settled down into my bed and let the soothing feeling of pain relief ease me to sleep. I was woken up at 1 a.m. again, the same man standing at my bed, with that same sinister smile, chilling me to the bone. Only this time, I was able to move my arms. After he noticed, his smile morphed into a very angry frown as he sprinted to my open window behind my bed and jumped out through it. That's it. No more pills or doctors for me. I'm starting physical therapy tomorrow. I awake to a noise downstairs. My forehead slick with an icy sweat, the remnants of a nightmare fading from my mind. The room is dark, the end of the bed, only visible courtesy of the warm glow creeping from the crack under the door. I exhale, slowly. It was just a dream, whatever it was. I try to raise my hand to wipe my face, but I can't move. My arms are bound. My lungs feel restricted and heavy. Sleep paralysis. I calm myself, refusing to panic. This was normal. Well, not normal. This hasn't happened in years, but I knew the routine. Or at least, I thought I did. Happy thoughts. Maybe. The claws on the bedpost glint as the creature pulls itself from underneath the bed once more. It grins in longing, and I can almost imagine its quiet, screechy whisper. Miss me? Sharpened teeth dripping with the transcendent blue of soul from whatever hell it climbed from. Ignore it. It's not real. I think of my Caroline, her warm figure, and her comforting smile. I think of our first date, some cheesy movie before a quiet picnic underneath the starry sky. Later, looking into her eyes as she proclaims her love, clad in white dress before our joined families. The demon licks its lips and rests its webbed feet on my legs as it begins to slither itself towards my face. I can't feel it. It doesn't exist, but I can still feel my breathing tighten. I want to panic. I want to scream. I think of more recent things. How earlier in the evening, her rosy lips brushed mine before she left for her parents' house, whispering that she had cooked my favorite dinner. What was it again? Something greasy probably, from how it was packed before it was lying in the oven. Shit, it's probably still there. I haven't even been in the kitchen tonight. Forgot all about it. The creature's tongue begins to lick my face, somehow looking scaly and slimy at the same time. I can't feel it. It's not real. It grins wickedly, almost daring to bite down. It's not real, I remind myself. Just sleep paralysis. But the room is getting warmer, brighter. I can even smell the smoke. But I still can't move. My eyes cracked open, and the first thing I noticed was that it was still dark. The pitter-patter of rain against my window was soothing, and it gave me hope that I still had a long night of sleep ahead of me. My fan was blowing cool air against my face, and I tried to roll over to get more comfortable and fall back asleep. The second thing I noticed was that I couldn't move. My eyes grew wide, and a weight began to creep onto my chest as panic filled me. I frantically tried to move an arm, a leg, a single toe, but to no avail. I legitimately thought I was dying and couldn't even muster a whimper. My eyes, rolling wildly, landed on my dresser and noticed a third and final thing. Something was perched on top. It was shrouded in shadow, but I could make out clawed feet, gripping the top edge. It appeared to be leaning forward, taloned hands resting on its knees. Long, pointy ears erupted from the sides of its head, and as I watched, it appeared to open its mouth and let out a hiss. I jolted awake, covered in sweat and gasping for air. My head snapped to the side, and my eyes took in the empty dresser. The pitter-patter of rain tapped softly against my window, and the room was still dark. But it no longer soothed me. I rolled to my side and flicked on my bedside lamp, trying to slow my racing heart. It was just a dream, I told myself. With the light on, I take in my room again, but see no sign of another living thing. Slowly, I turn and put my feet on the floor, dropping to a crouch, then to my knees. I lower my head, my heart pounding again, and check under the bed. It's empty. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and stand up. Feeling nervous, slightly foolish, and now totally awake, I turn and look at my empty dresser again. Only this time, I notice the claw marks scratched onto the edge. More than sleep paralysis. I had a long day at work, a 12-hour shift, so when I got home, I crashed on my bed. I must have been in a deep sleep, because I had the wildest dream. I dreamt that something was chasing me, but when I looked back at it, all I could see was like a dark silhouette of a man, with no visible features, running as fast as I could, in a dark, endless hallway. I suddenly felt burning cold hands on my shoulders. Then I woke up. I was back in my bedroom, and I was freezing cold. I looked down to see that my blankets and pillows were gone. I then noticed I couldn't move at all. The only thing I was able to move were my eyes. My eyes darted around the room, and I saw something at the entrance to my bedroom door. It was a tall and slender man, with a wide, toothy smile that stretched from ear to ear. His eyes were forced wide, and they were almost glowing a pale yellow. He was making a chattering noise, like insects crawling over each other, and he was slowly making his way towards me. I wanted to scream, to tell him to stop, or try to run away, but he got closer and closer. Each of his steps sounded like his joints were snapping and breaking, all while his mouth made that disgusting chattering noise. Crack, crack, crack. I didn't know what to do. All I could do was just cry as he finally loomed over me. He was towering over me and my bed, and just his torso moved to me. His smile was right next to my face, and I felt a hot breath hit me. I'm not religious, but I prayed for something or someone to just bloody save me. Then I saw his arm move and stretch towards me. Despair completely overtook me as I could only watch as it started at my ankle and brushed its long hand over along my body. It moved up my leg to my face, and it started chattering again. I looked into its face, but I couldn't see any more but eyes and teeth as it smiled at me. Crack, crack, crack. He brushed his sharp claw-like fingers over my face and put one finger over my mouth. The chattering noise stopped, and all I could hear was a deep and guttural "Gah" as it proceeded to sink underneath my bed. Honestly, at that point, I was so scared, I think I passed out. Morning came, and I woke up. I could move, so I jumped onto the floor and looked underneath my bed. Nothing. Was it just a dream? I walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water onto my face. It must have been a dream. Maybe work has got me stressed out. That's when I looked into the mirror and gasped. My reflection was smiling, ear to ear. They say sleep paralysis is the most terrifying thing. Being unable to move a muscle as a demon slithers over to your bed and pushes its claws into you. Being unable to scream as it sits on your chest, forcing the breath from your lungs. You are sure you are going to die. All of a sudden, it's all over. It was just a dream. They say sleep paralysis is the most terrifying thing. They are wrong. Last night, I saw the demon at my door and braced myself for the inevitable. Last night, I didn't wake up. Last night, I wasn't dreaming. The first time I've ever had it was a few weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4. That was the time when I woke up to something above me. It was slightly blurry, but I could just barely make out what it looked like. It was an odd-looking human-shaped silhouette. I could just barely make out its eyes. They were a dimly glowing blue, moving back and forth as if they were observing me. The rest of it was covered in shadow, impossible to see. After I panicked, for maybe a minute or so, I realized I was going under sleep paralysis. I remembered a few traces of a dream I had before I woke up, so there was no doubt. I just waited there, staring at the strange shadow for a bit, waiting for my body to adjust and wake up. I waited for quite a bit. The sun started to shine through the window, filling the room with light. But somehow, the silhouette remained dark. I must have woken up close to sunrise. Some time later, after what felt like hours, the light started to dim again, filling the room with darkness once more. My phone started to ring, but I couldn't answer it. My legs started to itch, but I couldn't scratch it. The doorbell rang, but I couldn't answer it. All I could do was stare at the thing above me, its eyes still cutting into my soul. As the days continued to go by, I've had sleep paralysis for a long time. A very, very long time. I think my ex attacked me during an episode of sleep paralysis. I awoke only to find I couldn't move. My body wouldn't react to my mental commands. All that I could move were my eyes. It was then that I saw a shadow in the right corner of my bedroom. After a few seconds, I realized that it was the black outline of a human. Its long hair was down to its lower back, and its clothes were stained with what looked like blood. Its face turned to look at me. I recognized that face. It was my ex-girlfriend. Despite not being able to move, I was able to find my voice and choke out a question. "What are you doing?" I asked her. She didn't respond, but instead began walking toward my bed. I tried to get up and escape, but I was still paralyzed. She looked horrible. Her face was bludgeoned and bruised. Her neck was extremely bruised and looked extremely skinny. It looked like every bone in her body had been shattered. "You thought you could get rid of me? How?" she said. I didn't respond. "Until the truth is unearthed, your life will be a living hell," she said demonically. "I thought you loved me," she continued. "But you wanted her over me. I wanted to leave, but you refused." I stayed quiet, still frozen in utter fear. "You have 10 days, she said. She was right above me, her dark eyes staring straight into my soul. Then, she wrapped her hands around my throat, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't fight back. All I could do was watch, as she was slowly strangling me. I closed my eyes. And it was daylight. I was in my bed, my face doused in sweat, and my heart beating a mile a minute. I thought I had just experienced an extremely terrible nightmare, but when I looked in the mirror, there were fresh marks on my neck. This had actually happened. She said I had 10 days. That was 9 days ago, and every night, she has returned, and her attacks have been more brutal. I will probably die unless I do what is right. I have to go to the police and confess. After all, I killed her only 10 days ago. The air has been stolen from your lungs. You don't know how, you don't know why. Your chest is being crushed by an incomprehensible weight, leaving you gasping for life. You know you are awake. You are conscious. You can't move. The same incomprehensible weight, preventing you from breathing, has shackled you to your bed. You're stuck, but you can see everything. You can hear everything. You can feel everything. You wish you couldn't. You are inundated by innumerable malevolent whispers in an ancient, terrible, and indecipherable tongue you do not wish to decipher. Human-like shadows flit briefly across your line of vision. They are shaped like men, but you sense something off about them. You feel long, leathery fingers stroke your legs. They feel human, but, like the shapes, you know they are not. You want to squeeze your eyes shut, to cover your ears, to turn off your nerves. You want to stop feeling the prickling cold, and the desperate panic and breathlessness. You want it to stop. Wake up, wake up, wake up, you repeat mentally. You do not stop repeating it. You focus your limited energy on wake up, as you unsuccessfully try to ignore the whispers, the touches, the shapes, and the breathlessness. You abruptly wake in your bed, tangled in sheets, heart racing, beads of sweat running down your heated face. You rub your eyes and feel your heart rate coming. It's over. Finally relaxed, you get ready for work, eat a bowl of off-brand cereal, pet your cat on the way out, the usual. As you exit your apartment, you think you feel a long, leathery finger tap your shoulder, and an unknown word whispered in your ear. But, then again, it's probably nothing. Red Enigma. I wouldn't be able to tell you what I was doing before I woke up. only that I don't remember having a red light in my room. Maybe it was its glow that woke me up. It took me a while to realize that I was on my bed and that I woke up from a nap recently. I felt extremely cold, so as one would do, I tried to pull up my blanket. There was one problem, though. I couldn't move. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't even move a finger. It was then when a figure with long hair began to slowly rise and almost magically appear at the foot of my bed. What I at first thought to be my mother playing some type of joke turned out to be some creature I would only envision in nightmares. It had 4 arms, and it was bathed in shadows, letting me only see its silhouette. I was only able to see half of it, my vision being restricted by a different blanket covering my right eye. In an instant, it vanishes, and I feel like I'm being crushed by an immense weight. Breathing became a chore, and I somehow instinctively knew that whatever I saw was crawling over me. The crushing feeling kept progressively feeling more intense. It came to the point where I felt like I was about to die. That's when I saw something slowly entering my vision. A hand slowly entering the center of my vision, something dripping from its fingers. Never before had I seen a liquid have such a dark shade of red in my entire life. I wanted to run, to scream, and leave the room as soon as possible, but I couldn't do anything. I had to stay still and watch as the hand of the thing I saw touched my face. I couldn't see the monster. All I could see was the hand, letting the liquid coming from it drip near my mouth. I couldn't even recoil while that revolting stuff started to enter my mouth. It was cold, so damn cold. I won't ever forget how cold it felt. The cold, combined with the feeling of being crushed, was beyond any measure of pain I've felt in my entire life. Words weren't able to describe the relief I felt a while after, when all of a sudden, the room began to appear less and less red. Light started to flow in from a window in the room, and I couldn't feel the liquid anymore. The pressure I felt left, and I was able to move again. That was it. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that I had a bad bout of sleep paralysis. It was over, and I had a cool story to tell my friends. So imagine the look on my face as I got up from my bed and found a drop of something deep red on the floor. Beep, beep, chimed the machines surrounding Ben as he laid there in his hospital bed. It was the middle of the night, and he was awake, but flooded with a feeling of dread. Then he realized why, as he recognized a familiar shape out of the corner of his eye. Mr. Shadow, a sleep paralysis demon that haunted him for years, until his therapist taught him to dispel the nocturnal visitor. Mr. Shadow would torment Ben when he was younger and stressed by bullies or school. Mr. Shadow would taunt him about his grades, about nobody liking him, while applying pressure to his chest and making it hard for him to breathe. Incapable of fighting back, as he would be fully paralyzed somewhere between dreaming and awake. Ben, what happened to you? You are bald as a cue ball and connected to machines. Do not tell me that you are dying, taunted the shadowy demon. All that hard work and clean living, and this is what you get. It does not seem fair, does it, Ben? No, it is not fair, responded Ben. But at least you are here. I really do not want to be alone. Mr. Shadow moved closer into Ben's peripheral vision, a wicked grin almost coming into focus, before retreating into darkness. You want me here? Now I know you have lost it. I taunted you as a child, and as a teen, I made you wet your bed, way past when was acceptable. I threatened you with terrible futures of being a failure and a loser. But you could not guess this shitty future, could you, Mr. Shadow? In all of your anxiety manifesting powers, in all of your dark tormenting, in all of your reaching into my deepest fears, neither you nor I knew this shit would happen. It makes everything else seem trivial in comparison. Mr. Shadow moved closer into Ben's vision, half a dark face, eclipsing Ben's view of the ceiling. I guess this is it, said Mr. Shadow. You are going to die. Yeah, probably not tonight, but sooner or later. And all I can do is ache and feel sick and tired. So believe it or not, you are a welcome distraction for once. So please stay and let's talk. Even if you are an asshole as always, at least I will not be alone. Mr. Shadow responded, but you are all alone. Remember what the therapist said, how I'm all in your head. Well, what is in my head is not half as bad as the shit in my pancreas, Mr. Shadow. So like I said, you are a welcome distraction for once. Also, if you are in my head, you die with me, Mr. Shadow. The demon moved in closer, putting its weight on Ben. It made whispery noises, but it was not its usual cackling. It sobbed softly as it lay on Ben. Under the weight and the sobbing, Ben smiled and drifted back to sleep. Sleep paralysis is so scary, I can't even believe it's real. It's like something out of a horror movie. Let's take the place that is supposed to be synonymous with comfort and relaxation, and associated with literally the most terrifying things you can imagine, and then paralyze you for good measure, so you can't get away. And worse, in my case, it's chronic. I have an episode at least once a week. If you've ever experienced it, you know the drill. You wake up in your room, and you can kind of tell you're dreaming, but it's very realistic. You find it's almost impossible to move, and then the fun starts. Sometimes it's spiders crawling on your chest. Sometimes it's gray aliens experimenting on you. But the one I always get is the old woman. She comes out of the closet or sits up abruptly next to your bed. She approaches you, sliding across the ground on the tips of her toes, staring with her empty eyes and her ratty dress floating around, even though there's no breeze. With her ice cold fingers that feel jointed like spider legs, she grabs onto your feet that you can't pull back under the blanket. You can swear she's dragging you off the bed. Then the next thing you know, you're outside and she actually is dragging you towards the tree line. You wind up in a patch of woods with some weird piles of rocks and sticks tied into cymbals. Then she starts singing or screaming, I still can't figure out which. Then those little things start crawling out of the trees, and they writhe and flop towards you because their limbs are all deformed. And then you have to sit there while they put their mouths all over you, because again, you still can't move. Then that other thing, that's way too tall and way too thin, comes out of the darkness and scares the little ones away. And the old woman falls to her knees and starts bowing. Then the thing starts taking off your clothes, and everything goes red. And that's when you finally snap out of it, and wake up sweating in bed. So scary. I've been to every doctor I can think of, and there's never any cure for it. All they can say is don't watch television or eat nachos before bed. It's just so frustrating. I can't figure out what's causing me to have these dreams, what they mean, or why my sheets and closet are always covered in dirt and pine needles. Just something I'm going to have to learn to live with, I guess. I don't think I'm alone. Someone's watching me. If you read this, help me. It started a few days ago. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I couldn't move. At first, I was confused. Was this sleep paralysis? I've never experienced it before, so why was it happening? As I questioned what was happening, I felt something. Someone crawled directly on top of me and looked at me. The feeling of their breath, letting me know their mouth was open. I tried to scream, but I couldn't. I couldn't see them, but I could tell they were staring directly at me. Then they got up and went into the direction of the door and phased away in front of it. After that, I sat up and looked at the door, breathing heavily from fear. It scared me, but I didn't know what to think of it. Until this morning. I woke up and was laying down since I was still tired. It was bright outside and my eyes were closed. Then I felt something get on top of me again. I opened my eyes and saw something that gasped in surprise when I did. They got up and once again phased through the door, and I sat up shaking from terror. What is that? I didn't know where else to post this, so I did it here. Someone, please let me know what's going on. I'm so scared that someone's obsessed with me and is watching me. Please help. I don't think I'll be able to sleep until I know. So I've been dealing with sleep paralysis since I was 14, which is about 15 years now, and I've had thousands of horrifying episodes. There's one particular I'd like to share with you all. So in 2010, I met this girl, a beautiful woman, who is now my wife. We hit it off, and by late 2011, we were living together in a small apartment in town. She was aware of this condition in which I deal with, and I'm sure she thought I was crazy, but it never really seemed to bother her. So we were living together for a couple months now, and I hadn't experienced sleep paralysis for a long extent of time. I'd say maybe a month or so. I wake up one morning unable to move. No biggie, this is nothing I'm not used to dealing with. So I lay in bed next to my wife, who woke up the same time as me, and she held my hand and smiled at me. I assumed she had not a clue I was paralyzed at the moment, but I thought to myself, I'll snap out of this soon enough. That's when I realized something was wrong. Way wrong. Something way darker was going on here than I originally thought. Because beyond my wife, I could see through the whole way into the bathroom. And in the bathroom, I could see my wife doing her hair, getting ready for the day. So which one was really my wife? That's when the one laying next to me began to dig into my hand with hers, and her nails turned into claws. The smile on her face grew bigger and bigger to the point it consumed almost all of her face, and her eyes became hollow and black. Now at this moment, I'm freaking the hell out, like I've dealt with similar things before, but what the heck? So as her smile takes over her face, I begin to feel fingers coming out of my bed, tickling my legs, and then trying to hold them down and pull me down into the bed. I fought. Damn did I fight, and I came out of it like always the champion. This one though really got to me. It messed with my head, to be honest, and to this day it still gives me chills thinking about what happened. I have a baby monitor video on my nightstand by my bed. It shows my 2-year-old daughter asleep in her crib in the other room. Last night, I fell asleep laying on my side. After about 2 hours, my eyes open, and I can clearly see the baby monitor on my nightstand. But I can't move or speak. I'm fully paralyzed. After a few minutes of staring at the video monitor with a nervous, disturbed feeling, I see something walk up to the side of my daughter's crib. It was at least 7 feet tall and looked like the silhouette of a praying mantis human morph. I couldn't see the details, just its shape and size. It bends over the side of the crib, and its face gets very close to my daughter's face. I try my hardest to move my body or yell in order to snap out of it, but I can't. It stood there, bent over the side of the crib, its face less than a foot away from my daughter's. It stared at her for at least 60 seconds. Then suddenly, its head turns and looks at me, at the camera. I can feel it watching me. It knows I'm paralyzed. At this point, I'm panicking inside, trying my hardest to kick and scream, but I just can't. A few seconds later, my fiancé, laying in bed next to me, shakes me and wakes me up. She woke me up because our daughter just started screaming and crying on the baby monitor, which is very strange because our daughter never wakes up in the middle of the night and cries. We hop out of bed and run into her room. She's terrified. We stay with her until she's comfortable enough to fall asleep, and then we head back to bed and fall back asleep. An hour later, the same exact thing happens again. I go into the paralysis and see the same figure on the monitor with our daughter. And then my fiancé wakes me up because our daughter is screaming again. The next day, right after lunch, I'm putting our daughter down for her daily regular nap. But this time she doesn't want to take the nap and starts crying. She says, scary monster, over and over. That's the first time she's ever said that. In fact, it's the first time she's even said the word monster. I've been having sleep paralysis all my life, and each time there's also some sort of dark figure watching, stalking me, wishing to do me harm. What if they've been real this whole time, and the only ones who can see them are me, and now apparently our daughter? What if these demons I'm creating in my mind while in sleep paralysis are beginning to manifest in real life? A piercing shriek rang through the air. It woke Marissa up, awakening her sleep-deprived mind. She slowly opened her eyes, groggily, and encountered darkness. The shriek continued and Marissa internally cringed. Attempting to investigate, she slowly stood up, but found herself unable to. Her arms had no strength, along with the rest of her body. She suddenly heard the beating of her heart, echoing loudly. She panicked, and yet again attempted to move, but similar to before, she still had no bodily control. She realized her powerlessness and relaxed, coming down and believing it to be due to stress. 10 minutes went by. Marissa still stared at utter darkness. Strange shapes appeared in front of her, a trick played by the mind. She began to panic again. What the hell, she thought. Once again, she put in all her effort to move, which yielded no result. Utter darkness reigned supreme, with none of its polar opposite invading its territory. Marissa stood in the field of nothingness, unable to perceive and unable to observe. She was powerless, unblessed by the light, unguided by the light. The void had devoured everything, leaving only her behind, leaving her to suffer, to repent. Suddenly, an agent of light managed to successfully pierce through the veil of darkness. It shone like the sun in the void, bringing forth joy within Marissa. She exclaimed in praise in her mind. She rejoiced, for she had not been forgotten. However, uneasiness crept into her time of joy. She still could not move. She still had no control. The agent of light approached her. Distance between the two, no matter how far apart in the void, rapidly decreased. Fear began to build up. Her heart began to beat more rapidly. The light was now close enough to be clearly observed, but no matter how much effort she invested into seeing it, her mind could not grasp it. Her mind couldn't grasp its shape, its size, and its general properties. "Be not afraid," said the light. "I have come to offer freedom. I have come to offer your reward. Do you accept?" With no hesitation, without any will, Maurice's mouth moved. She uttered the words of confirmation. The being of light had been granted permission, and Marissa lost all control of herself. She didn't notice the terms of condition laid out in front of her in her hurry to escape her mini-hell, and failed to understand what permission she now had granted this being. She never slept, nor woke up again. For the creature of light was not of it. In fact, the light was never on our side. It could only bring eternal darkness. It only benefited us, luring us into a false sense of familiarity. Not once did humans ever question the motives of the light. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis before? If you have, you know the feeling of terror that creeps into your mind as your worst fears attack your senses while you lay in bed. However, another feeling is felt during these episodes of helplessness, inevitable relief. As you scour the internet for answers about this condition, you begin to feel a sense of safety, as people you have never met before tell you it's only your brain playing tricks on you, as if you're only in a dream-like state while awake. However, you and I both know you have to take the word of a stranger with a grain of salt, and I assure you that the truth is far from what you will hear online. I've experienced sleep paralysis for a long time now. Shadows dancing around my field of view, a sense of pressure as I lay helpless on the bed, and the loss of my ability to speak. Despite these common occurrences, sometimes the shadows do things outside the normal range of possibilities. Sometimes I hear what they say, and a few times they have even conversed with me directly, albeit without my response. In the midst of these beings, the most shocking revelation I have discovered is that these shadows were once like me. People who have figured out the truth behind this condition. I did not know the meaning behind this revelation, but I was worried about how they came to be shadows. However, what I feared the most was what a lone shadow told me last night. It is not us you should fear, but the evil you will meet once you stop seeing the shadows. The therapist. It woke me. I was asleep in bed, on my back. A light sleep. I felt it. The smell of the human breath, the warmth, not necessarily foul, but definitely present. Right beside me, to my left. The breath eased against my face and neck. Again, not a foul breath, but an undeniable presence of life. I opened my eyes, but I was frozen. Sleep paralysis, I know what that is. I actually experienced it regularly in past years. Anyway, From the periphery of my vision, I could see something. The curtains to my right were open, and moonlight shone through, exposing the outline of a bald head to my left, right beside me. Now, I couldn't move my head, obviously. I could only look straight towards the roof. But I could see him from the corner of my eye. Usually when I have this paralysis, I snap out of it relatively quickly, about 40 seconds. Well, this time was no different. My senses finally came to me. I began to rotate my head towards the bald man. But as I did, he got lower and lower. I turned my head slowly, and every degree I turned, the man got lower. Lower and lower until he was underneath my bed. So, there I sat, upright on my bed, staring at where the man had sat. The room was dimly lit, so it was safe to say my anxiety levels were pretty high. I knew though, I thought I knew, it was just paralysis. Until I heard the breathing again. From under my bed, I heard it. Slow and steady. I am frozen on my bed. Frozen in fear. I grabbed my disposable camera, which sat on my windowsill, and the therapist snapped his notebook shut and capped his pen.
Jack, quite frankly, I am not a paranormal investigator, nor do I believe in the kind. Sleep paralysis is a very calm.
Jack shot up into a sitting position on the therapist's recliner and slammed his hands down in anger. You said you would hear me out. You gave me your word, he said. The therapist hit a buzzer, which sat on his desk, and a tall security guard entered the room.
Please escort my client out of the room. He has shown a tremendous tendency for violence, and I will be discharging him.
You bastard, Jack exclaimed as he was dragged out of the room. He kicked and screamed and wriggled until the door shut, and the therapist was left in silence.
This job,
he said to himself,
is absolutely ridiculous.
He slicked his silver hair back and rose to his feet. As he made his way towards his desk, he noticed something laid beside the door on the ground. A disposable photo. He walked over, bent down and snapped it up, turning it around in his hand. And he saw it.
Oh, dear God.
So I mentioned at the start, I used to have SP, short for sleep paralysis. I had it for many years. If I had my nightmares in the bed, I would wake up in that very bed. If I had fallen asleep on the sofa, I would wake up on the same sofa. And always in the same position. I was dreaming about. Every little detail I dreamt about would always be exactly as it was when I woke up. Of course, this do make you wonder if it was real or not. Nobody really knows, I guess. When I first got SP, it was the usual paralyzed sensation and a feeling of some presence in the room. It was a scary experience, not being able to move, not able to scream, totally paralyzed. And I would fight it. I would try to use every single muscle in my body to make my head turn, or even my eyes, just so I could see where the presence was. But I never could, of course. Eventually there would be shadows. First one, then more. So came the voices, and eventually I started to feel hands on me, touching me, strangling me. That was the worst. When hands would slowly creep up my back, to my neck and start to squeeze until I couldn't breathe anymore. I would wake up out of breath, sweaty and frightened. It was during one of these stranglings things changed. I always fought back, or tried to, as that was the natural thing to do. But then one day, it just occurred to me, I should stop fighting, just see what happened maybe. For some reason, I visioned a brick wall, and I focused on that one brick in the middle. My body started to relax, and after a short while, the squeezing of my neck started to ease up, until it eventually stopped completely. I woke up for a change, breathing normally, feeling relaxed. I can't remember any more details, but from then on, I never fought back, and it was not long after it all stopped completely, and I have not had any SP ever since. Maybe I just outgrew it. This could very well be the case. Or it could also be that just relaxing made it go away. I don't know, but it might be worth trying. Okay, thanks for listening and good night.
Please subscribe or the toxic skull will come for you.